On this episode of One-on-One, we're going to be talking with Bill Barbera. He's the CFO, COO of our diocese here in Houma, Thibodaux. A very colorful background, very large family. We're going to talk with him on his journey to that position and see what inspired him along the way. It's all next on One-on-One. One-on-One is brought to you by the Law Office of Waits and Downer. And welcome back to this episode of One-on-One. Very pleased to have Bill Barbera with us. And Bill, welcome to One-on-One.
Thank you, Martin. I appreciate you giving us an opportunity to be here.
Such a large family. We were talking before the show, and
Yeah.
it's, even though we probably should all know who belongs to who, especially in the Barbera family, it's always tough because there's so many personalities
Sure.
in that family. Take me back to the earliest years you can remember, and maybe for the audience, who you belong to and that kind of thing, and then we'll create a journey from there.
Absolutely. You know, we have a really proud heritage in our family. It started in Napoleonville. My dad and his two brothers, Sam and Joe. My earliest, I guess it was somewhere around 1964, 65, so I was a young rugrat at the time. My Uncle Sam moved to Thibodaux and opened a dealership in Thibodaux. My dad remained the dealer in Napoleonville, and now my brother Bobby is the dealer there.
Just for the audience, your dad's name.
My dad, I'm sorry, Jerome.
Yeah. Okay.
Not to be confused with the Judge Jerome,
Right.
who was my first cousin, but Jerome was my father's name, and my grandfather started the dealership back in prior to, it's been a Chevrolet dealership since 1926. So he is a Studebaker dealer prior to that. But
So approaching 100 years.
Approaching 100 years, yeah.
Wow, incredible. Strong personalities on the Barbera side. Everybody doing something that's sort of high up. Did you sense that growing up, that everybody had a strong personality?
I guess I saw my dad. My dad was always involved in the community, served on the police jury, and was active in, with the civic organizations in the community and in the surrounding parishes. So I saw that from him, this sense of service to the community and recognizing the importance of, as a successful business owner, needing to be supportive of the community that supported him in his business. So,
Right. Did I hear correctly that you were one of 7 brothers?
One of 7 boys, yes.
What's the pecking order?
So I'm next to last. Bobby, who's probably most known in this area as the dealer in Thibodaux, is number 2. My oldest brother, Mike, in the mid-'80s, moved and runs a bunch of dealerships up in Alexandria.
Okay.
And then the rest of us kind of fall down in that area. But
Wow.
yeah, we all generally lived and grew up in the Napoleonville area. Recently, one of my brothers moved to Houston to be with his kids, and Mike's in Alexandria, and we're all in the Napoleonville, Thibodaux area now.
Yeah, what is it about Napoleonville? And I say that with a little bias because my dad's from around that area, but every time I go to Napoleonville and I stop or I pop in the store or whatever, it's the nicest people. They all tell me how much they watch the channel, but then they invite you over. I remember one time me and Dad went over there. We talking with somebody, and we end up at their house, and we go back home with a bunch of shallots.
Yeah.
So, but it's just that mentality of
Right.
everybody's just so comfortable with everybody.
I tell you, like small town America, it's declined, and people have moved out to the larger communities surrounding it and so forth. But was just a wonderful, wonderful place to grow up. You know, all the moms kept all the kids in town in order, and you know, all of my friends' mothers were my mothers as well. You know, it felt that way. Just a wonderful place to grow up, and you know, there's not a whole lot there these days in terms of business and industry, but it is the parish seat. I think that adds a lot to what maintains, you know, Napoleonville as it was and as it is today.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm. As your journey has brought you to be the CFO and the COO of such a, let's face it, the Diocese of Houma Thibodaux is big. There's a lot of tentacles all over the place. There's a lot of things for you to go through and maneuver and do, and we'll get to that. But I'm more interested now in the journey leading up to that. What got you ready for that?
A few things. I think early on in high school, one connection to that, I think, is the fact that I considered a vocation to the priesthood, and while in high school, I attended Cathedral Prep, a high school seminary that the Baton Rouge Diocese ran for many years through my junior year. After my junior year, the school closed, and I came back home to Napoleonville, but finished my senior year at E.D. White. So I think from a desire to work for the church and that, from that standpoint, that's kind of where that was kind of ingrained in me. Attended Nichols, went through the ROTC program, and went in the military for 4 years. We lived overseas in Germany for almost 4 years there, and got some really good management experience in that capacity. And then for the most part, spent the rest of my career in banking and financial services prior to coming back to the diocese. A lot of people, or some people may remember or know that I used to be at the diocese years ago, and that was working for Bishop Jacobs when he first came on board around 2003, I think it was. And I spent 5 years as the CFO at that particular time. It was a little different organizational structure. You know, people know the names of Louis Aguirre and Sister Miriam, who were, you know, very actively engaged in the administrative side of the house of the diocese. And so I left after 5 years with Bishop Jacobs and went back into banking as the CFO for United Community Bank, better known today as UCB. Worked with the Calais family and some really wonderful folks there. And a very close friend of mine, a childhood friend of mine from Napoleonville, John Toops, who was in my role prior to me coming back on board, was leaving to go back into corporate America in an opportunity he had. And so he called me, he said, I really think you ought to consider it. And I was really torn about whether or not I wanted to do that. You know, I say at my age, but you know, I'm now looking towards retirement then, as opposed to building a career.
Right.
And had a lot of conversations with Father PJ, as you know, he lived ironically out the back door of the bank of my office where I was working. So
really,
so
there we go again, 6 degrees of separation.
Absolutely, there's no doubt about it. You know, he and I had become close while I was with the diocese before. He was my pastor at St. Genevieve for a few years. And so I initiated my discernment, if you will, with him and in conversation with him, and decided to throw my name into the hat and felt like I had the qualifications and the experience that the diocese needed at that particular time. And that was roughly a year ago, ironically. The week before Ida was my first day back on the job with the diocese.
So you really had to push the pencil after all the damage and everything, and
Oh
We
yeah,
didn't overlook
absolutely.
everything.
That's all encompassing, all consuming, I should say.
Yeah.
These days, and that's going to be a long road ahead for us.
So I'm thinking of your family dynamics, and I really only know Bobby,
Right.
you know, because I've done shows with Bobby before. I just knew him from sports, and to think of that dynamic in that family where you're watching some older siblings who are strong personality. How did that shape you growing up? Because sometimes those dynamics can be intimidating, or they can inspire some of the young ones to go,
Yeah.
I want to be better.
Yeah. I think it really stems from them setting the example to not be afraid to find a way to give back and participate in what's going on in the community. You know, I saw my cousins in the Thibodaux community. I saw my cousin Jerry as a district judge for many years and well respected, and you know, some of the work that his brothers did in the community, along with, you know, the work that my dad and primarily my brothers Stephen and Bobby and Mike did in the Napoleonville Assumption Parish community and their church parishes, and just seeing that they you know, don't be afraid to step out and offer help, even when you have some doubt about your ability to do so. You know, just step up front and do it.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm. I think you said 2003 you were there
Yes.
before. So the years go by and you come back, and the diocese is ever changing. Were there any challenges when you went back and you went, oh wow? Or is there templates you use as a COO or a CFO where you go, oh, just let me apply what I've learned and let me just maneuver through?
Well, I was very blessed coming back in that, you know, as much as the diocese has changed, a lot of the same faces and names are still there. We've got, you know, and I'm not talking about just the pastoral center, but folks that work in the parishes, in our schools, and so forth. Just, you know, tons of 20 and 30-year employees. So it was very comforting, kind of knowing the personalities and the folks that I would be interacting with an awful lot. And having had that experience of being here and then being welcomed back with open arms to kind of lead the staff and the organization in a direction that we needed to, that was, you know, again, a week later, Ida hit, and we rapidly knew that we were going to be in a whole different frame of mind for the next few years, trying to restore the buildings and so forth. So it was just not walking into a functioning organization. It was an organization that was redirected and had a whole set of new priorities.
But I guess you have to be sort of fluid in your thinking, because working for one bishop is going to be a whole lot different than working for Father PJ as an administrative, you know, overseer now, which really is the bishop. But so you got a more personality. So as a COO, CFO, I'm sure some of the principles are the same, but you got to be cognizant of where they want to go.
Absolutely, you know, and that the as we use the term, the mind and the heart of the bishop is what drives the diocese in everything that we do. So we're always cognizant of that, whether it's a sitting bishop or an administrator, as Father PJ is. But gosh, I mean, you know, it was wonderful working with Bishop Jacobs. I had gotten to know and had remained involved with the diocese in a few different capacities over the interim years, but had gotten to know Bishop Fobb fairly well before I came on board, and the time that I did work with Bishop, now Archbishop Fabre, was just truly a blessing, just a wonderful, wonderful man, and couldn't have picked a better mentor just in life by just following his lead as how he dealt with people, and you know, his strong sense of being open to suggestions and hearing all sides of the story before making a decision.
He was such a quiet listener.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you were talking to then Bishop Fabre, sometimes you were going, wonder if he's hearing me. But he was hearing everything.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
He just didn't give you his thought process till he digested it. And so I guess you have to be astute in the fact that when you're talking to different people, you got to assess their personality.
Sure.
And that's your job to do that, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you know, as you know, running the business here, and most business owners and operators know, you know, 90% of your time is managing people and expectations, and you know, if you can, I don't want to use the term master that, but continue to work at that, then that's going to solve half of everything else.
And that's ever changing, always fluid.
Oh, absolutely.
So let me ask you this. For people watching that, I don't think some people realize how massive the Diocese of Houma-Thibodaux is. Now, it's not New Orleans, but it's big.
It's a big
What do you do?
organization.
What's a typical day for Bill Barbera?
Typical day is.
Or is there a typical day?
No, you're right. You're probably more right there. There's not a typical day, but to your point, the size of the organization. I mean, we are basically the Bayou region, Lafourche, Terrebonne, the eastern side of St. Mary Parish, Grand Isle, which happens to be part of Jefferson Parish, but that's a pretty big footprint to begin with, and getting to and from all those locations is not extremely easy, but it's 39 church parishes, 12 schools across our diocese. We don't know what the exact number is, but roughly 1,300 employees within our system. And a lot of the benefit structure and payroll and all of that is centralized in our office. So in one way, shape, or form, we touch those 1,300 employees throughout the month in a lot of different capacities. So, you know, I mean, it's as any organization of that size and having that geographical footprint, you have to really just surround yourself with really good people and allow them to do their job, basically, is what I like to think about in managing them. Now, I don't like to get in the weeds of everything they do each and every day, but just make time to meet with them and find out what are their challenges, how can I help, for them to give me a heads up of what's going on in those particular areas and things that we maybe need to address in a sooner than later scenario.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm. This one-on-one program has been brought to you by the law offices of Waits and Downer.